Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our Decision 2022 conversation with Charlie Crist. I'm Holly Gregory, anchor at Spectrum Bay News 9.
And I'm Yvette Bruswal from Spectrum News 13. Joining me are my colleagues, Emily Mahoney with the Tampa Bay Times, and of course the one, the only, Jeff Schweers from the Orlando Sentinel.
And we are here tonight with Charlie Crist, who is running for the Democratic nomination for Florida governor. So welcome, Congressman. Good to have you here.
Thank you, Holly. It's great to be with all of you. I feel surrounded because I am. It's great to be with you. Thank you.
We've got a lot to talk about, so we want to have a conversation. We want to start it off with the thing that is really at the forefront of voters' minds right now, and that is the state of our economy. According to Governor Ron DeSantis, Florida businesses are open and thriving, doing well, but we know the state is experiencing an affordability crisis. So what would you as governor do to help the average Floridian?
Well, I think the main problem we're facing right now is a housing situation where Florida is really unaffordable today. And I say it often, you know, if you're a millionaire or a billionaire, you're doing all right in Florida, but most of us aren't. And so many Floridians are getting squeezed and just crushed by this economy. Housing is outrageous. Good luck buying a house. Renting an apartment is difficult. One of the first things I think I would want to do is refund the Sadowski Trust Fund in the state budget. It's hundreds of millions of dollars to provide a roof over people's heads, Floridians all over the state, and make sure that housing is affordable. And it's been gutted, in essence. And, you know, when you do that, you don't have an opportunity as a Floridian to rely on your state government to help you get through this difficult time. And so that's number one. Number two, I think it's important to realize that our gas prices are out of control. We've seen a little droppage lately, thank God for that. But I called on the governor last November to cut and suspend the state gas tax. And now if you did that with the federal government, you could drop the price of gas per gallon about 50 cents per gallon. That would really make a difference to a lot of Floridians. I mean, I filled up my 2010 car a little bit ago, just half the tank, and it cost me $60. Which is stunning. I mean, and so we have a governor that's more focused on the White House than your house. And that's a shame. You know, it's all right to have ambition. I have ambition, but not blind ambition. And I think he's taking the eye off the ball and not being concerned about the price of gas, the price of housing in our country, in our state in particular. We've been rated the most expensive state to live in the country by Forbes magazine. More than New York, more than California, which is hard to believe, but that's where we are right now. So I think a lot can be done. We can work with our federal partners, local elected officials, like Ken Welch, the mayor of St. Petersburg, first black mayor. I'm very proud of that for my hometown. He's put down about $70 million just for South St. Pete and to help people get through this crisis. The governor's done nothing. He's been AWOL. He's been traveling all over the country. We need a governor that's on point, that's on task, and really there to help the people. That's why I'm running for governor.
And Congressman, you mentioned the cost of housing, which obviously includes rent and mortgages, but right now especially it also includes the price of property insurance. And we're entering peak hurricane season, as you know. Thousands of Floridians have seen a spike in their property insurance or have lost their coverage altogether and have had to scramble to find something different. What can you as governor do to help people find immediate relief to this problem?
Well, you can do what I did as governor the first time. I had the opportunity shortly after being sworn in to call a special session on property insurance, Emily. Incredibly important issue, and it is through the roof for every Floridian right now. The governor called a special session, and it was special for the insurance companies. In essence, what they did up there for about a week was make it harder for consumers to be able to sue their insurance company for damages they may have received from a storm or whatever the malady might have been. And that's just not doing the right thing. Again, they're in the pockets of the insurance companies in our state. And the job of governor or any elected official is to serve the people, to be a public servant that serves with a servant's heart and keep attuned to what the needs are of the people of the state of Florida. When I held that special session, when I was governor the first time, we cut property rates by 10%. The result of the special session under DeSantis was 0 reductions in property insurance. More companies have left the state, and it's a shame. We just have a governor that doesn't seem to care.
And do you have a particular plan to attract more insurance companies to the state of Florida?
Well, have a stable market. That's the best way to do it. And I think, you do it the way we did it when I was governor previously. We had citizens insurance, able to utilize that to make sure that there was a backup if people couldn't get insurance on the regular market. I just noticed where the DeSantis administration has decided to do exactly that after criticizing it for the past 4 years. But they're facing reality all of a sudden. But they're not lowering rates at all. And that's the real need. The consumer is hurting. People are struggling. And we have a governor and unfortunately a legislature that's going along with him to do absolutely nothing to ease their pain. And that's what you need to be attuned to and understand what's going on.
Speaking of the struggle of working Floridians, that we know that the lifeblood of Florida's economy is tourism, and the people who work in the tourism industry in restaurants and hotels and are attractions. But in part, and due to inflation, those wage earners can't afford to live here anymore, as we've discussed. What can be done to diversify the economy and increase wages?
Well, several things, but let's talk about what you addressed right there, and it really relates to tourism. And so many people that work in restaurants, work in hotels. As a member of Congress, we've given a lot of relief, because of the pandemic, and I'm very proud of that. Voted for it time and time again to make sure that restaurants had money to be able to stay open, that they would be able to continue to serve customers. But in addition to that, you're right. What other industries could we attract in order to have a more stable economy across the board? There's several come to mind. The tech industry. I mean, why does Palo Alto have a monopoly on the tech industry in our country? I don't think that needs to be the case. Florida's a great place to live. We'll make it more affordable. We'll offer different types of jobs for people to be able to get. And another one that comes to mind is the film industry. I can remember serving as governor and going on the set of several films that were being filmed in Florida. And one was about a dog. It had Jennifer Aniston was in it and Owen Wilson. A pretty funny movie, but emotional and kind of sad in some parts because the dog passed away. But the point is, when you have a film that's filmed in Florida, it turns out to be about a 2-hour commercial for the Sunshine State, adding more opportunity to have more people want to come to this beautiful place we call home, and good paying jobs. It doesn't pollute anything, doesn't add any emissions, and it provides high wage jobs, frankly. So tech, film, and making sure that we keep Florida clean. That's critically important because I believe, and I know, that in Florida, the environment and our economy are inextricably linked. We have to keep Florida clean. We have to pay attention to our environment. We've had all these algae blooms that we've suffered from here in Tampa Bay and in the Fort Myers area and St. Lucie County on the East Coast. And the governor, again, has done nothing to help. I remember being in a protest last July in downtown St. Pete, and the point of it was to call on the governor to call a state of emergency and get us help to clean up the dead fish. I'd never seen that many dead fish on Tampa Bay in my life. So we need a governor who pays attention and cares about Florida.
You're talking about movies, and I think of the real life scenario that everybody's living every day. It could be a horror movie because it's so frightening what we're seeing right now. When it comes to inflation, the experts say it's the worst we've seen in 40 plus years. But I want to ask you specifically about recession. Do you think we're in a recession, yes or no?
I don't think so. There are a lot of economic experts that know more about this than me. And what I hear them saying and writing is that we could be headed for one. We certainly are in a difficult time. And Florida is the tip of the spear. As I said earlier, we're the most expensive state to live in right now. We're number one, and it's not a good number one. So I think that we're not quite in a recession yet. This election in the general election is about 3 months away. I would tell my fellow Floridians, help is on the way. You can elect a governor who's going to care about you, wake up every morning thinking about what your situation is and for your children and your education. If we're fighting for teachers, paying them more, doing better for Florida as a whole, that's what my vision is, a Florida for all.
And we want to move on now to that next topic you just started to touch on of education. It has really come to the forefront. Parents are probably more involved than we've ever seen them. Starting with the pandemic, education has really become a centerpiece of this election. And as you know, Florida has just recently passed several controversial laws regarding classroom instruction on sexual orientation, gender identity, and also laws regarding race, critical race theory. So what should the state focus on when it comes to educating all children?
They got to focus on teaching the truth and teaching facts, and not try to whitewash American history. I mean, I don't get that. If there's an old expression regarding history that if you don't learn history, you may be condemned to repeat it. Ordinarily, that talks about things like the Holocaust, for example. In this case, I think it's focused on slavery. And that some people might feel bad if we teach the truth to our kids about some of American history. Well, what are we supposed to do? Have the head in the sand approach in our schools and not teach our children the truth and what facts are? I mean, you're all journalists. You deal in facts and some non-facts every day, and you have to sift through all of that. Well, from experience in education, and public education in particular in Florida, I think it's critically important that we provide the very best public education for our young people, that we pay our teachers more. We're the third largest state in America now, and we pay our teachers 48th or 49th out of 50 states. That's embarrassing. And this governor just had the largest budget in the history of our state, $110 billion. And still can't give them more? I don't get it. I mean, as governor the first time, our budget was $70 billion, and we were able to pay our teachers more per capita than what the administration under DeSantis is doing right now. It's inexcusable.
Well, and Holly brought up the involvement of parents in education, and obviously that's a huge topic with sort of the rise of this parental rights movement that we're seeing. What do you think the role should be of parents when it comes to crafting education policy, and how do you balance the conflicting concerns of one group of parents versus another?
Well, it makes me think of the PTA, Parent Teacher Association, and you had a combined effort that worked in concert together. Parents should have as much say in the education of their children as they want. I mean, they're the parent, for crying out loud, right? And so, I don't know why there's a debate. I don't think there should be one. I think that any parent who wants to be involved should be as involved as possible, as I said. And, and you talk about parental rights, and the governor talks about it a lot, but he doesn't seem to respect it. I will never forget seeing a viral video of him at a press conference when kids were wearing a mask, just trying to protect their health, and he dressed them down in public. Who does that? Well, apparently it's Ron DeSantis who does that. He put himself in the shoes of the parent. And I remember seeing one of those children's parents interviewed afterward and said, he's not that boy's father, I am. And he talks about parental rights. What a hypocrite. He should honor my parental rights as a father. And I think it was very inappropriate for the governor to do that. I mean, if you're going to talk about something and advocate it, then live it. And be respectful to children. Be respectful to everyone. I wear these yellow wristbands every day, Emily. And it's about a rule that I learned as a kid here in St. Pete. And it's the golden rule, which is, do unto others as you would have done unto you. I would recommend to the governor that he restudy it. Because if he had known it, it seems like he's forgotten it. And the simple things like that really do make a difference in our lives and our quality of life and how we treat one another and how good we are to each other. And I think we need that kind of leadership in Tallahassee again.
Thank you for that. And for the next question, we're also focusing on a big concern of parents, which is school safety. And after Parkland, the state did put some gun control and school safety laws in place, but we still see tragedies like Uvalde. What more needs to be done in Florida when it comes to gun control and school safety?
Jeff, this is a critical problem. It's a deadly problem, sadly. And, Florida has suffered horribly because of this issue. You mentioned Parkland. Of course, there's the Pulse nightclub in the Orlando area, a horrible incident at the Naval Air Station in Pensacola where a St. Petersburg young member of the Navy was killed. I knew him. He worked at a Publix where I used to shop. I think there's several things we can do. to make the situation much safer for our young people in school, and our teachers too, by the way. Number one, we should ban assault weapons outright. I mean, I don't understand and I cannot comprehend why anybody believes that we have to have assault weapons on the streets of America. You know, I want the military to have them because I want them to be able to protect our nation and keep our freedom safe. But the notion that we would have them available on the street is insane to me. And I own a gun. I believe in the Second Amendment, but I believe in sanity too. So banning assault weapons would be number one. Number two, we need to have background checks that actually check backgrounds. They're obviously not thorough enough. I mean, these recent massacres that we've seen across the country have been perpetrated by people that have proved themselves unstable. You know, whether it's, you know, Highland Park in Illinois, Texas, as you indicated, Buffalo not long ago. We've got to put a stop to it. And then I think thirdly, a bill I'm sponsoring in the Congress right now is to have red flag laws all over the country. We have it in Florida, and that's a good thing. But what if somebody in Savannah, where they may or may not have a red flag law, gets in possession of a firearm, comes to Jacksonville, commits some horrible crime? That's why I think uniformity across the nation is vitally important here too.
Before I move on to LGBTQ plus equality, really quickly, ghost guns. That's also a big talker. How would you get rid of those?
Well, you know, we just have to get rid of bad guns, period, and bad people having guns. And I think the way to do it is the way I just talked about it. Banning assault weapons, having background checks that are significant, making sure that there's not loopholes for background checks, like private sales, those kinds of things.
Okay. Let's focus now on, as I mentioned, LGBTQ plus equality. When it comes to medicine and education, that's where we want to go for the deep dive. There have been recent moves by the DeSantis administration to restrict protections for the LGBTQ plus community. I know I talk a lot of transgender community members in Central Florida, and this is top of mind. So again, when it comes to medicine and education, what specifically you, sir, could promise to this community policy-wise?
Fairness. What's wrong with fundamental fairness for everybody? Whether you're gay or straight, whether you're black or white, whether you're short or tall. I mean, what kind of delineation are they trying to create by saying some people can get medicine, other people cannot? I mean, what country is this? You know, we are a country of fair-minded people. I still have faith and belief in that. And I know it's the case. You know, most Floridians are wonderful people. They care about each other. They want to do the right thing. And so, you know, whether you're gay or straight shouldn't make a difference about what medicine is available to you or, you know, anything in your aspect of life. And by the way, who is anybody else to tell someone who to love? You know, and I think President Obama put it best when he was talking about this issue. And I think that we need to comport ourselves better and have a new governor, and I think that'll help.
But policy-wise, a little bit more specific. For example, would you, as governor, make sure that Florida is following CDC guidelines that are coming out at the federal level, but right now are being pushed back by the current administration?
Yeah, maybe I'm strange, but I believe in science. I mean, my father's a family doctor. My sister is a physician. And I believe in science. And I believe and know that climate change is real too. And the notion that we wouldn't take advice from the best, brightest scientists in America and in fact mock them like Dr. Fauci, like the governor does, I mean, is beyond comprehension to me. He is engaged in culture wars, pitting Floridian against Floridian, you know, gay versus straight, black versus white, eliminating African American congressional districts unilaterally, like redlining out Al Lawson's district in North Florida or Val Deming's district in Central Florida. I mean, it boggles the mind. I mean, this is 2022, and he makes it feel like it's 1952. You know, we need a change, and change is coming, and I'm confident about that, and I look forward to it.
Let's move on to another very contentious topic, and that is the topic of abortion. Do you support any restrictions on abortion?
I think, Holly, the real question here is why does Governor DeSantis believe in restricting a woman's right to make a decision about her own health and her own body? That's the issue. I mean, let's pull back and see what's really being done. He signed a law, a 15-week law, that doesn't even have an exception in it for rape or incest. Who does that? Well, apparently our current governor does that. And I think that's exactly what the people of Florida do not want. That's I was raised with 3 sisters. I'm an only son. And I have great respect for all people. And it seems to me like the governor doesn't respect women in this regard. And I find that appalling. You know, if they can't make a decision for themselves and some white guy in the governor's mansion is going to make the decision for them, what does that say about him? I mean, I just don't, it's a rhetorical question. I don't expect you to respond. But, I mean, I think it's obvious that that's disrespectful. It's inappropriate. We deserve better. Floridians deserve better. You deserve to have a governor who respects you and your decision making and your ability to make your own decisions about your own health care instead of the government telling you what to do. I thought the Republicans believed in less government and more freedom. We're getting exactly the opposite out of Governor DeSantis.
But you were, at one point, a pro-life Republican, and you appointed to the state's high court a justice who is still there, who is anti-abortion. So if there is a voter out there who is voting on this issue of fearing that their abortion rights are going to be, infringed, and that's a key issue for them, why would you be the one to vote for?
To vote for me?
Yeah.
Because nobody in this race has done more to protect a woman's right to choose than Charlie Crist. Let me explain. As a young state senator in 1995, I was on the health care committee in the state senate. We had a bill come before that committee. It would have required a 24-hour waiting period for a woman before she could make a decision about her own health. As a Republican, I voted against that bill. And because I voted no, it was a 3-3 tie. The bill died in committee, never went to the Senate. That's number one. Number two, as your governor, as a Republican, a reasonable Republican, I should add, I vetoed a bill that was anti-abortion, that would have required a woman to get an ultrasound and pay for it herself, because I thought it was mean-spirited and inappropriate and taking the decision out of a woman's opportunity to make her own decision. And then thirdly, as a member of Congress now for almost 6 years, I've got a 100% rating from Planned Parenthood, 100% rating from NARAL, endorsed by both of them, endorsed by Alex Sink, one of our former candidates for governor of Florida because of this issue, endorsed by Barbara Dravecki, the former Florida president of Planned Parenthood, because of this issue and my stand on a woman's right to choose. No one in this race has done more to protect a woman's right to choose than I have.
Thank you.
I want to pivot now to talking a little bit about leadership, both leadership of the state and of the Democratic Party. Sure. First of all, I think the most obvious question is, as you've outlined lots of policies here, if you were elected, you would be a Democratic governor working with a Republican legislature, most likely.
Likely.
Most likely.
Although we had quite an election last night in Kansas, so
we'll see.
Nothing's off the table. But anyway, I'll accept your premise.
Assuming it is a Republican legislature,
yeah.
How would you work with that legislature?
I get this asked every day, as you might expect. I think relatively well. I was a Republican. The leadership of my former party really left me. I didn't leave it. And we've seen it kind of metastasize over the years. But number one, I think what I would strive to do, because of how I am and who I am, is establish relationships with moderate Republicans in the Florida House and the Florida Senate. Try to work across the aisle, which I've always done. Mm-hmm. And I think it's important to establish those relationships so you can establish trust. And trust is important. And I think where we could find common ground would be issues involving the environment or education. Who doesn't want a great education for your child? Improving our employment opportunities, as we talked about earlier with tech and the film industry in Florida. And protecting Disney World would be a good thing too. But if the carrot approach of the carrot and stick didn't work, then I would resort to the stick. When you get elected, you get a pen, and they call it the Veto Pen. This is actually one of the veto pens that I had when I was governor the first time. And you don't always have to use it in order to be effective. And let me explain. It's very helpful to negotiate. Let's say that a state representative in Miami wants a certain water project in his or her district. And they come to me and say, look, Governor, I know you have line item veto for the budget. I'd rather you didn't line item veto this project. It's important to my district. And I would respond with something along the lines of, well, there's things that I think are important too, Representative. I'd like to make sure that we fight to get restoration of rights back on the table and give people a second chance once they pay their debt to society as former felons, nonviolent, of course. And if you'll help me do that, I might let that project go. And so you might not even have to veto in order to be effective, but the stick is there, and if I have to veto, I will.
One of the things we've seen very recently is that registered Republican voters for the first time have surpassed Democratic voters in Florida. And you previously referred to redistricting, probably part of the reason why we're seeing some of these shifts. And what should the Democratic Party be doing to fight against this shift and, break the Republican Party's control over Florida?
I think do what I'm doing in this campaign, and have done my whole career, frankly, is try to stand up and fight for common sense priorities. Fight for a woman's right to choose. Fight to make sure that our teachers are paid better so that our children get a better education. Show that respect to that profession, after all, teachers. Make sure that we protect Florida's beautiful environment, because it's so important, to our economy, as I touched on earlier. But I think we have a God-given duty here, too, to be good stewards of the land and the water. I mean, I think we live in the most beautiful place on earth, and we're blessed to live here, and I think we have a duty to protect it. Those kinds of things, mutual respect, standing up for our universities, making sure that the governor's not trying to censor the University of Florida, and they have a right to say what they want, protecting Walt Disney World, and if they have a difference with the governor on a certain piece of legislation, protect their right to free speech. After all, it's the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. And the guy went to Harvard and Yale. How did he forget that part? I don't get it. Maybe you need a Florida State grad to get it right.
Listen, as we wrap things up, why do you think you're the one to beat Governor Ron DeSantis?
Because I'm the best prepared to do it. I've done it. I've been your governor. I've been your attorney general. I've been your commissioner of education. I grew up here. I'm a public school kid. I did graduate from Florida State University. I'm prepared for the job. I don't need any on-the-job training. I can do it from day one. And on day one, I'll sign an executive order to make sure that women in Florida have a right to choose when it comes to their health.
All right, Congressman Charlie Crist was the governor as a Republican, wants to be your governor once again, this time as a Democrat. We appreciate your time. We know you got a lot of things going on. This is an in-depth conversation, and a lot of people are going to learn a lot by watching this.
Well, I want to thank you all for the in-depth questions, and I've really enjoyed it, and thank you for what you do. You're good professionals.
Thank you so much for being with us today, and thank you. Now for myself and the rest of our panelists, we want to thank you for watching Decision 2022, a conversation with Charlie Crist. Don't forget, August primary, August 23rd. Get out and vote. Make your voices heard.
In print or online, get in-depth news you can trust and information 24/7 about fun things to do from the Tampa Bay Times. More news, your way, every day. Subscribe today.
Since 1876, Central Florida has depended on us to deliver the truth every day, reporting on what matters most to the communities where you live and work. We've marveled at the power of Mother Nature, mourned together, believed in magic, and we're excited for what's ahead. In all we do, and in all we stand for, we are Central Florida. This is the Orlando Sentinel.
To the Point Already, a weekly Spectrum Bay News 9 podcast about the people and issues that impact Tampa Bay. Available now on the Spectrum News app.
Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our Decision 2022 conversation with Nikki Fried. I'm Holly Gregory, anchor here at Spectrum Bay News 9.
And I'm Yvette Brussois from Spectrum News 13. Look who's here joining us. Our colleagues Emily Mahoney with the Tampa Bay Times and Jeff Schwiers from the Orlando Sentinel.
And we are here tonight to talk with Nikki Fried, running for the Democratic nomination for Florida governor. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me here today.
Great to have you. We've got a lot to talk about. We want to start off talking about the issue really in this race that voters have said time and again is most top of mind for them, and that is the economy. We know that Governor Ron DeSantis likes to talk about how well Florida businesses are doing, that they are open and thriving. But the state is experiencing an affordability crisis right now. So what is your plan to help the average Floridian?
Well, first of all, thank you for hosting me here today. I know that originally we were trying to do this as a debate format, but unfortunately that didn't work out. So I appreciate you having this conversation. Look, and I'm hearing the same thing everywhere I go. No matter where I'm in South Florida, Central Florida, North Florida, everybody's having an issue, whether it is paying for their rent, whether it is paying for their mortgages, property insurance, property taxes. And so what we have seen is that under our Governor DeSantis administration, that Florida has become the most unaffordable state in the nation. Our rents are higher, our property taxes are higher, our gas is higher, my God, our inflation is higher than the national average. And so what we have said is we have put together a platform that's calling lowering our cost of living, but also raising our standards. So on day one, we're declaring a housing emergency, because that's exactly what it is. It's an emergency. If somebody can't afford their rent and somebody can't afford a roof over their heads, that's an emergency. And so that gives me the opportunity to allow our state attorneys to start going after predatory landlords. Because if inflation is at the national average, we're above it here in Florida, is about 11.4, 11.7. 60% rent increases, that is not inflation. That is pure greed. And allowing our state attorneys and our attorney general to start utilizing those resources. The other thing is we got to fix the property insurance market. We saw that the Republicans waited way too long to get into a special session, and then nothing really happened. We are still hearing from everyday Floridians that either one, their policies are being dropped, or that it's become so high in their premiums that it can't afford it. So I have a plan in place of how to make sure that we're creating a marketplace that is competitive. That means that we are lowering the rates, not putting people into Citizens. We always know that Citizens is supposed to be the insurer of last resort, not only resort, because God forbid we get hit by a hurricane this year. You know who pays for it? We all do. And so there are so many things that we could be doing, including I've been asking Ron DeSantis for months to have a state of emergency when it comes to our gas prices. Unfortunately, he's doing 1 month, and that's in the month of October, which is right before the election. Instead of focusing on the needs of the people of our state today, I would have done it immediately. It would have been going all throughout the summer, not waiting for it to be politically feasible.
And thanks for going into some detail about your plans to address the housing crisis. I'm hoping you can go into a little bit more detail about your plans on the property insurance problem. You brought it up already, obviously, but as you know, we're entering peak hurricane season, and this has reached crisis levels in the state of Florida. Some people are losing their coverage altogether. And so, what can you do as governor that would provide immediate relief to people on this problem?
Yeah, because see, here's what's happened. Right now you have a situation where it's on two sides. You've got the fraud that's happening from the insurance companies. I mean, I was at an event last night where I asked in a room full of probably 100 plus people, how many people have been told that they have to get a new roof in order to get their new policies renewed? And almost half the room raised their hands. So we are seeing fraud on that respect. But then we also are the most litigious state in the nation when it comes to insurance. So you got to be able to look at both perspectives. So as governor, being able to put together a statewide task force instantaneously, immediately, where we go through and we look at ways that we can rectify the situation on both ends. The other thing is, and this is going to go so into the weeds, so I apologize for this, But what has happened is that our insurance companies have to buy what's called reinsurance, which is the insurance for insurance companies. And the reinsurance market across the world has become so expensive. And so many of our domestic companies either, one, can't afford to buy that reinsurance and either become insolvent, or they are forced to place that reinsurance and it's so expensive on the premiums. We have a reinsurance company here in the state of Florida that is backed by the state, which is called the CAT Fund. What should have happened is allowed our domestic insurers to come in and actually compete with the CAT Fund. And so that wasn't done. That would have alleviated some of those extra costs and reduced it. The CAT Fund has about $22 billion in reserves. It is flush with cash. The other thing is that the governor brought back in the SBA, which is the governor, the attorney general, and the chief financial officer last month, and they increased the CAT Fund 13%, which is the rate, which is about $150 million. We pay for that. That is on us. Instead, they should have kept the CAT Fund, no rate increase. That way, we'd have reduced those costs and have been able to put it back onto the homeowners. So I have a plan that has been well thought out, well detailed. It's a shame that it has to wait until I'm governor to actually go into fruition. But we've got a plan because we're hearing these horrific stories all over the state.
Thanks. And one of the key components of this affordability issue is wages, and we see that the lifeblood of Florida's economy is tourism. Lower wages generally associated with those kind of jobs in the tourist industry, and those wage earners can't afford to live anywhere because of this inflation. What can be done to diversify the economy and raise wages?
Yep. Thank you, Jeff, for that very, very, very important question, because what's happened is we know that the number one economic driver for our state is tourism. That is the lowest rates for people to work. And some people are having to go through 1, 2, sometimes 3 jobs just to barely make ends meet. And unfortunately, the second, economic driver is also agriculture, which also has some of the lowest rates. But the problem is that we haven't diversified. The Republicans have spent so much time bringing in the top 1%ers, bringing in all the big businesses here in the state that are going to help the top. That doesn't help our everyday workers. So I have a plan of 3 different issues that we need to bring in. Number 1, we got to bring back the film industry. The film industry has got to come back into the state of Florida. This could have been a $3+ billion industry. We know that. These companies and the industry is going to Georgia, is going to now Arkansas and Arizona, which has incentives. So you bring the film industry back, you have better paying jobs, which also helps the local economy because you're having individuals that are going to our local restaurants, that are going to our local stores, our small businesses. So that is one area, and they're better paying jobs. The second, and I know everybody's been hearing me talk about this for 4+ years, we've got to legalize cannabis. That is another opportunity to bring in good paying jobs, which is what I've done in the hemp industry. We've seen already from the legalization of hemp, already 15,000+ jobs, which are better paying jobs in our state. The third is we've got to bring back our manufacturing. We have lost so many manufacturers in our state, whether it's going overseas or to other parts of our country. And that is really so much of our workforce used to be in manufacturing. And those are great paying jobs. So just those 3 areas helps to really diversify our economy and make sure that we're lifting everybody up, not just the 1%ers that are being lured into our state.
Before I move on to the next question, a quick follow-up. You talk about legalizing cannabis. Talk to us about the financial impact to Florida, because I know you've talked about this in other places, but we want to hear it here. Is in the billions of dollars that you were projecting?
Billions.
How much?
I mean, the projection, let's look at Colorado. Colorado, in just a few years, was able to bring in over $1 billion of taxable revenue to their state. So much so that so much of that money was actually used to help the school system during COVID. And that's Colorado. When we have such an increase of tourism here in the state of Florida, so we're talking billions upon billions of dollars of taxable revenue. But the other thing that I talk about, too, when it comes to legalization of cannabis, not only are we bringing in taxable revenue, but we're also bringing in good paying jobs. And also, we're dealing with the criminal justice system that right now, so many people still in our state are in the jails and in our prison system for cannabis possession or related, arrests. That way, if you take people out of the jail system, you're lowering your costs for your public defenders needing, your state attorneys, your courthouses, your jails. So now you're reducing the cost of our criminal justice system, increasing the revenue of our state, and it's also a reformation of how we're going to reform the healthcare system. Because I've talked to plenty of our healthcare companies, and they say, you know what, Nikki, do you know what the largest overhead cost for a healthcare company is? That's pharmaceutical drugs. And so if you start giving people other options for a more holistic approach, alternatives like cannabis products, you're taking people off of pharmaceutical drugs. That also now lowers our healthcare costs. It's a win-win for the state of Florida.
Talking about the dollars and cents quickly, yes or no answer from you if we could. Are we in a recession?
I do not believe so. If you just look at the numbers across our state and across our country, we're going through a time when, sure, you're seeing increase in inflation, but people are working. People have opportunities out there that we're not there yet. I'm hoping that the legislation that's coming through and the deal that's been cut in Washington, D.C. is going to help with inflationary numbers, but I do not believe that we are in a recession yet.
I want to pivot now to talk about another big topic. We have seen education really become a centerpiece of this election cycle, and Florida, as you know, has passed several controversial laws recently regarding what can be classroom instruction, things on sexual orientation, gender identity, also regarding race, classroom instruction with CRT. So how does the state focus, how should the state focus on educating all children?
First of all, state government needs to get out of the classroom. We have to trust our teachers. We have to trust the people that are there every single day teaching. Look, my mom was a teacher for 25 years. She taught preschool. And what she used to tell me is that who a child is at 4 is who they are at 44. These teachers that go into this profession are doing it because they really care about the future of our state, and that's by educating. And so we've got to be trusting those teachers. And I want to tell you a little story. My niece turned 13 in March. And we asked her what she wanted to do for her birthday. And she said, I want to go to Washington, D.C. with Auntie Nikki. So we took a trip to Washington, D.C. I took off from the campaign trail for a couple of days. And we did a tour of the White House, a tour of the Capitol. And as we're touring the Capitol, they have this video that gets played. And so we sat and watched about how the Capitol was built. And so I've got my 13-year-old niece to one side, I got my 10-year-old nephew on the other side, and the video is talking about how the Capitol was physically built, and it was built by slaves. And my gut was like, oh my God, are we going to be able to learn and teach this in the state of Florida? And that type of history has to be taught. And as we're seeing the rise of racism, the rise of anti-Semitism, I mean, my God, we have neo-Nazis that are on our streets in Tampa and in Orlando. And the only way that we're going to be able to combat that type of hatred is by education. This is ignorance. And that's something that I was taught my entire life, that you have to stand up and you have to educate. And so we have to make sure that our classrooms are not war zones for our teachers, that right now our teachers, which is why we have such a huge shortage, we're asking our teachers to be the mental health counselors, we're asking them to be the actual teachers, they're asking them to be the parents. Now we've said you can be armed and come in as security guards, and now we're saying that you have to decide what to teach and what not to teach if you're going to get sued, and you're not going to get sued, and yet we're not going to pay you enough. We're 49th in the nation when it comes to education. So we've got to be focusing on back to the basics, making sure that our kids are equipped with being able to succeed in life after they graduate. And what we have done to our education system, we're creating a war zone, and we got to take a step back and refocus on curriculum and not so much of this culture wars and making people and our kids feel less than because of where they come from.
And Holly mentioned how education, and you touched on this as well, how it has become such a political issue, and a lot of that obviously is sort of this movement of parental rights that we've seen. And so I wanted to ask you, what do you think the role of parents should be when it comes to crafting education policy, and how do you balance addressing the concerns of one group of parents that may be in direct conflict to another group of parents?
Look, like I said, my mom was a teacher. She was very involved in my life. And look, we've got parents all over the country that are involved in PTAs, that are always showing up at school board meetings. It has to always be a conversation. But what we have to really do is be teaching our kids one fundamental principle. There's more that unites us than divides us. And what we have to do is make sure that we're teaching history and not putting our own spin on it one way or the other. There's history. There are lessons to be taught. When I was in Jacksonville yesterday, I had an opportunity to talk to some of the civil rights activists from Jacksonville, and they were telling personal stories of what they physically went through during the 1960 uprisings in Jacksonville. That's personal stories. To think that they're not allowed to come into the classroom to retell what they went through, it takes us backwards. And so in order for us to move the state forward and our country forward, we've got to be learning the facts. And that should not be disputed. But parents have to, of course, have a role. These are their kids. They have to be entrenched in their lives, but we have to make sure that there's a balance, that teachers can still do what they need to be doing inside the classroom to make sure that we are creating these well-rounded students at the end of the day.
You talked about schools being war zones, and I think they quite literally have, as we've seen, unfortunately. And after the Parkland shooting, the state did put some gun control and school safety laws in place, including red flags and a more controversial guardian program for, I think you mentioned, teachers being armed and being security guards. But we still see tragedies like Uvalde. What else needs to be done? What more needs to be done in Florida when it comes to gun control and school safety?
We have a lot of work to do. Look, when I ran for commissioner, I made a promise to the people of our state that I would do everything inside of my power, inside the Department of Agriculture, to protect the people of our state. Number one was kicking the NRA out of my office. We did that day one. Number two was to make sure that everybody had a complete and thorough background check. Accomplished. That has been done. Because of my election, people in the state of Florida are more safe. But we also found a tremendous amount of loopholes in our program and tried to put forth legislation that tackled some of those issues. Unfortunately, in the Republican legislature, they didn't move. I also, for the last 3.5 years, have stood side by side with some of our legislators talking about things that we need to be doing. That means background checks on ammunition. We know bullets kill. Making sure that we have more safety measures to have safe storage. In fact, just last week we launched a new program that every single person who receives a concealed weapons permit from our office is going to get an entire letter that shows them different steps they need to do to safely put away their guns and to lock it up. Because the statistics out there are so alarming that a majority of suicides and a majority of a lot of the inner city and a lot of the street crime that's out there are from guns that have been stolen or taken from parents that haven't stored their guns properly. And so making sure we've got those types of safety measures in place. And I think the other thing is this. Look, I wear every single day. I have 3 of these on my wrist. These are Bullets for Life. An organization down that started in Miami that's taking bullets off of our streets. And because we talk about these mass shootings, but we don't talk about what's happening every single day in our communities, that we are seeing young men being killed on the streets. That I marched 2 weeks ago with a lot of these mothers for justice down in Miami, that are still looking for justice for their kids that have been shot in gun violence in their streets. And so we need to be able to empower organizations like this, or the Circle of Brotherhood that is out there, that are doing the work on the ground to change the culture of what is happening. Look, we did it with tobacco, as we were talking about even earlier and before we started the show, that back then, everybody smoked. It was the cool thing to do. And because of the Truth Campaign, it's no longer the cool thing to do. And we could do the same thing with guns. And the fact is that Republicans today, they want that NRA endorsement. They want to be having in their TV commercials and on their spots, be holding their guns like they're, powerful. This is cool. Having this is cool, not showing the NRA endorsement and seeking that out. So there's lots of tangible things that we could do in statute, but there's a lot of, and of course we need to ban assault weapons, but there's also a lot of things that need to get done when it comes to changing of the culture.
So many topics that we have to tackle in this interview, and the next one that we want to do a deep dive on is focusing on our LGBTQ community. And when it comes to equality, a lot of critics of the current administration are very clear on social media, at different events, that there have been recent moves, according to them, by the DeSantis administration to restrict protections when it comes to the LGBTQ plus community, specifically when it comes to medicine and education. So our question to you is, what specifically can you promise this community policy-wise? And we're getting a lot of comments too from our transgender community members who are really worried.
As they should be, as they should be. This is personal to me. My stepbrother came out to me when I was in high school, and I watched his journey as he came out to, this is in 1993, 1994, where I always say times were different then, but unfortunately they're not so much under this administration. Watched his journey through coming out to our parents and to our friends and watching what he went through. And this is something that I've always been in the trenches on. Even there was a story that came out today of my time when I was at the University of Florida and I was student body president, and there was a radio station that refused to broadcast from one of the Pride Student Union's events. And I said, we're going to withhold money until they change that policy, and they did. So I've been somebody who has been in the trenches standing up for this community because, again, this is family. And one of the first things that I did when I became Commissioner of Agriculture was two things, actually. One, we enhanced our anti-discrimination policy in our office to make sure we encompassed everybody. Second, I created the first ever LGBTQ advocate for the state of Florida. And now those individuals, I had first somebody from South Florida and now somebody from the St. Pete and Tampa area that have been those advocates out there talking about consumer issues. And Nathan, this legislative session, he's had to testify more than he ever probably bargained for when he decided to take this job. And in fact, on this Friday, the Department of Health is having more hearings on some of this medicine that they're trying to withhold from our transgender community, and he's going and having to testify again. This community knows that I am their greatest straight ally that they could ever have in government position. I have been doing this for, again, I'm now 44 years old. I've been doing this since I was, 16 years old. This is family to me, and they have a true champion, and I will do everything in my power to make sure from the top that we are putting not only an advocate, but creating a separate agency that is just focused on equality and focused on these issues.
Okay, thank you.
I want to move on to another contentious topic, and that is abortion. Do you support any restrictions on abortion?
Look, I go back to what we've had here in the state of Florida. We had 24 weeks. This is what has been the law of the land of our state for a very long period of time. That's where we need to go back to, because that was an opportunity for women to be getting the health care that they need, have the time to make the decisions that they need. And even in the 24 weeks, you always wanted to make sure that you're protecting the woman and making sure that her life-saving medicine if necessary. That's where we need to go back to. And as the only pro-choice candidate in this race who has been pro-choice my entire life, this is going to be one of those issues that is going to make such a difference in the outcome of this election. I mean, look what happened in Kansas last night. A red state saw more people voting in an off-term year than they have seen since 2008. The silent minority is coming to the polls because even if somebody is pro-life, they didn't want this. They didn't want the overturning of Roe v. Wade. Here, even in the state of Florida, over 67% of Floridians, that's not Democrats, independents, Republicans, know that we have to be able to create this balance and this reproductive health care here in our state. In fact, earlier today, I announced that I've already started a legal team working on a constitutional amendment because unfortunately, regardless of this 15-week abortion ban, that it's going to be overturned, that our right to privacy in our Florida Constitution is going to be overturned. And Ron DeSantis has made it very clear that he wants to go further. And so we have to know that we've got to be taking proactive steps today. We can't wait for the Supreme Court to come back and say that we don't have that right to privacy. So knowing that I'm putting together a legal team to be working on getting the ballot initiative, getting the signatures, having the full weight of the governor's office to get this on there to make sure there is no question that in our Florida Constitution there was going to be a right to privacy and that abortion is going to be covered.
How do you explain, though, your campaign, and you have been very vocal about the fact that you are the one to trust on this issue. You have been consistently pro-choice, and you've pointed out that your opponent has not been. So then why do agencies like Planned Parenthood and pro-choice Emily's List and Ruth's List have not endorsed you?
I mean, that's politics that have nothing to do with this. I say very consistent. And the reality is that Charlie has been all over the place on this issue. He has flipped almost every single time. Still to this day, he calls himself pro-life. And the fact is, when I just talked about that this constitutional amendment is going to be overturned and that our right to privacy is going to be stripped away, Charlie put on the most extremist anti-choice Supreme Court justices, our current chief judge that is going to be making that decision to not give us our right to privacy is a decision that Charlie made in appointing him, knew his background, knew what he was doing. The greatest litmus test of a president or a governor is who they appoint as judges. And when Charlie had that choice to appoint judges, these were his decisions. And now we're dealing with a situation today based on decisions that he made when he was governor.
I want to pivot now to our last topic, which is sort of about leadership and executive leadership in the position of governor. Obviously, you've laid out a lot of policy ideas today, but to enact a lot of those policies, you'll need to work with what is looking like it will be another Republican majority legislature in the state of Florida. How does that work? How do you work with a Republican legislature as a Democrat?
Yeah, look what I've been doing. You know, for 3.5 years as the only statewide elected Democrat, not only have I been able to get things accomplished inside of my own agency without the necessity of the legislature and approval of stuff, but even still, almost 75% plus of my budget proposals that we've given to the legislature have been passed and have been put forth in the budget. Including my first legislative session, we wanted to legalize cannabis. Well, yes, but legalize hemp. And we were able to work and had a Republican sponsor on both sides of the aisle, unanimous on both sides of the chambers. And so there is going to be opportunities for us to work together, because I've been doing that for 3.5 years, working with the legislature on getting things that we can work together on. But the other thing is that veto pen is very powerful, and have no problem not only utilizing it on legislative priorities, utilizing it on budget, line item budgets, vetoing an entire budget if necessary. And the greatest other power that the governor has is calling special sessions. That if they don't want to work with us, those legislators who think that they're part-time are going to be spending a heck of a lot of time in Tallahassee. And I think the other part there, too, is that you're seeing that all of this legislation that's been passed, that has been radicalized in the last couple of years, are in the process of being challenged in the courts. And this is something that I did when I first walked in as Commissioner of Agriculture. I sat down with my general counsel and I said, how many cases are we involved in? And as I laid through, there was one case in particular that I said, well, I don't want to be a defendant in this case. I want to be a plaintiff. I agree with the plaintiffs. And that was dealing with home rule on gun preemption. And because of the fact that I was able to have a different opinion than my predecessor, we were able to utilize the commissioner's office and get us into the Supreme Court because of our positioning. And so when you have a governor who takes a different view than the previous administration, you also can utilize the courts and be on the other side and be with the plaintiffs on so many of these cases, and utilizing the governor's office that way too.
Okay, we're wrapping things up. We got 10 seconds to answer this. Why should a Democrat vote for you over your opponent?
You know, Democrats are looking for one thing, and one thing most importantly, winning in November. And as the only statewide elected Democrat, the only one who's been able to win our state since 2012, as that fierce champion, as somebody who's been a lifetime Democrat since I was 17 years old, Democrats know that they've got a warrior in me, they've got a champion, a fighter, and most importantly, that they've got a winner.
Hashtag no filter. Thank you so much, Agriculture Commissioner Nikki Fried, for joining us on this in-depth conversation, right? That we all answered lots of questions, and you answered them all. We appreciate your time. That's it, guys. We're wrapping it up. On behalf of Holly Gregory, myself, and our team of fellow journalists here, we've got Jeff and Emily. Thanks so much for joining us, and remember to vote.
Stay connected on the go with the Spectrum News app. Watch your trusted Bay News 9 team live wherever you are, and stay updated on the local news and weather forecasts that matter to you. Spectrum News, your community connection. Available on the App Store and Google Play.
Our community is very diverse and dynamic in many ways, and so is our weather. That's why at Spectrum Bay News 9, we make sure you have the accurate information you need to plan your day every day.
The weather experts, only on Spectrum Bay News 9, exclusively on Spectrum.
There's plenty of reasons to celebrate with Spectrum Mobile, because now you can get the best deal in mobile, unlimited